So for fat loss supplements, only a few have real evidence to support their use. Time and time again, the beneficial effect from these supplements comes when combined with exercise training. Even for the products that have demonstrated ability to increase thermogenesis and overall calorie burn, it is usually quite small. This just means that if you bank on a supplement to help you lose weight or lose fat without considering your overall nutrition and exercise habits, you're in for a long, expensive, and unsuccessful battle with body composition. In fact, many people feel that when they take a fat loss supplement, they can loosen up their good eating patterns because the pill will do the work for them. This couldn't be any further from the truth. In fact, we published research on an ineffective weight loss pill that contained caffeine, green tea, CLA, and some amino acids. It turns out that after 8 weeks of taking the pill, but not exercising, resulted in no changes in body composition at all. Now that we've talked about weight loss supplements, let's talk about some supplements that are thought to increase your muscle mass. The biggest player here is creatine, or creatine monohydrate. Creatine is one of the most popular supplements ever produced, and the most thoroughly researched of any supplement. We produced creatine naturally in the liver and the kidneys. It is stored either as free creatine or bound to a phosphate molecule in skeletal muscle. Naturally, the creatine phosphate energy system is used to provide energy for maximal intensity, short duration exercise. And creatine supplies a phosphate to adenosine diphosphate to create adenosine triphosphate, the energy we need to do everything. As a supplement, creatine is often used to build muscle, improve strength and power, and increase anaerobic or short duration exercise. Things like powerlifting and sprinting. The standard serving of creatine is 5 grams, which is equal to the amount of creatine of about 2.5 pounds of raw meat. So needless to say, it's a lot easier to take one tiny scoop of creatine versus eating an entire plate of steak. There are several forms of creatine on the market, but the one that has the most research support and effectiveness is creatine monohydrate. Several hundred peer-reviewed research studies have evaluated this form, and more than 70% of those studies show a significant improvement in exercise capacity and increases in muscle mass. So let's take a look at some of the research that has been done with creatine to build muscle mass. Well, in my lab, we had 29 healthy, resistance-trained young men consume 21 grams of a multi-ingredient performance supplement, which contained creatine, for 6 weeks. During this time, they also lifted weights 3 times per week. And the results of this study showed a significant 4.7% increase in muscle mass and a 1.6% average decrease in total fat mass. The good news is that creatine seems to work in both younger and in older people. In fact, men and women over age 65 who took 5 grams of creatine monohydrate per day for 2 weeks and lifted weights 3 times per week had a significant increase in muscle mass and overall strength. There was an average increase of almost 4 pounds, or 1.8 kilograms, of muscle mass in the creatine group compared to less than 1 pound, or 0.5 kilogram, increase in the placebo group. Creatine has even been shown to be studied in children. One study had 16 young teenage male swimmers compete in 2 all-out 100% effort 100-meter swims. After supplementation with 20 grams per day of creatine monohydrate for 5 days, there was a 2-second improvement in time to complete the 2 sprints. Almost no time change was reported in the placebo group. How does creatine help? Most experts attribute the beneficial changes to body composition and performance from creatine to the improved ability to do more quality work during exercise. But research also shows some improvement to actual cellular processes for muscle gain too. And due to the repeatable success of creatine use for improving both body composition and performance, creatine is now being studied and used with great interest for clinical populations and in disease prevention. Creatine has now been shown to improve muscle mass and outcomes in people with muscular dystrophy, leukemia, traumatic brain injury, and infants born with errors of normal metabolic function. It is amazing how this traditional sports supplement is now being used for neuromuscular and neurological conditions. Creatine doses that are similar to what we've discussed have been documented to enter your central nervous system and influence brain concentrations of creatine phosphate after both 7 and 28 days of supplementation. Because creatine enters your brain, it has some evidence to support positive effects in cases of traumatic brain injury, and even some evidence for stroke patients to improve brain function. In addition, patients with muscular dystrophy are now shown to benefit from creatine supplementation, improve nerve function, muscle mass, muscle strength, and power. Even in traditional cases of sarcopenia, or the age-related loss in muscle mass, including creatine and resistance training is shown to increase muscle mass and decrease fat mass. Now, a common myth is that creatine is a steroid and will damage your kidneys. Creatine is not a steroid. It is simply the combination of 3 amino acids. The research shows that creatine is safe and effective among young and old, male and female, and healthy and diseased populations. In the absence of any pre-existing conditions like kidney disease, creatine is a supplement that has been consistently shown to be beneficial. The most common side effect reported with creatine is weight gain. However, this is probably the type that you want because creatine increases muscle mass. Remember, it is more about body composition than body weight. Also, note that some cases of gastrointestinal upset have been noted in the literature. And the most common dose is 5 grams per day, about 1 tablespoon. Research shows that creatine builds and preserves muscle mass, so it may be an ideal supplement across the lifespan stages, and not just for young people trying to put on muscle. And because so many people lose muscle as they age, it might also be a good idea to use creatine to try and prevent some of the muscle loss. It is something that I recommend to my parents and my family. Another supplement that may help with muscle mass and performance is called beta-alanine. It has been shown to improve performance and exercise capacity, as well as to permit greater intensity and volume of exercise training. Sounds pretty good, right? So how does it work? Essentially, beta-alanine, which is an amino acid made in the liver, combines with another amino acid called histidine to form a new protein molecule called carnosine in the muscle. Carnosine then acts to buffer or soak up the acidity or hydrogen ions that are created during very difficult exercise. When accumulated, hydrogen ions cause muscle pain and fatigue. So if the hydrogen ions are controlled, theoretically you could exercise longer and at a higher intensity. You see how, once again, higher intensity exercise for longer should help to improve body composition. For example, one study had men take 3.2 grams per day of beta-alanine with 10.5 grams per day of creatine, or 10.5 grams per day of creatine only, or 10.5 grams per day of dextrose, a sugar placebo, for 10 weeks during a resistance training program. It was found that the beta-alanine plus creatine group had the greatest improvement in muscle mass and the largest decrease in fat mass over the course of the study. And other research has tested 4 grams of beta-alanine per day compared to a placebo for 8 weeks during a high-intensity interval sprinting and resistance training program in young men. The results showed that despite both groups losing weight, the composition of the weight was different. On average, the group taking beta-alanine gained more muscle mass. Other studies are beginning to pile up too, many that support the use of beta-alanine to increase performance and improve body composition in both men and women. So how much do you need to be effective? About 3 to 6 grams per day for 4 weeks can increase intramuscular carnosine and improve performance. Typically, this dose should be split up throughout the day for best results. For example, taking 1.5 grams 3 times per day. One side effect to note is that beta-alanine is often associated with a tingling feeling or a numbness in your extremities that's called paresthesia. This sometimes is temporary but annoying. And not all people have this feeling, but it's reported in many of the research studies. As a result, some companies have made extended release capsules to allow for slow release of beta-alanine. This slow release can help reduce or diminish any of the paresthesia effects. My lab has completed 2 small pilot studies with the use of beta-alanine in both Parkinson's and multiple sclerosis patients to see if it improved their physical function. Those data are still being analyzed, but in a short 4-week study, performance was not improved any more than a placebo. So once again, while there's crossover from sports science to diseased populations, much more work will be needed just to see what products will work for each condition. It's a very exciting time to be in this field for sure. With all that said, it seems that beta-alanine improves performance by being converted to carnosine. But more work is underway to pinpoint exactly how beta-alanine improves performance. Now, other great muscle building or muscle maintenance supplements exist, including amino acids like leucine and whole proteins that we discussed earlier. Another supplement called HMB, that stands for beta-hydroxy-beta-methylbutyrate, also shows some promise to help build muscle strength, and particularly in non-athletes. But more research is needed. Some supplements like caffeine, EGCG, creatine, and beta-alanine have been studied repeatedly over the years in many different populations. They have been shown to be effective in many different types of exercise modalities too. What is really cool is that these traditional sports performance supplements are crossing over into the clinical world and being used to assist with improving or preventing chronic disease. The most prevalent examples today